Hey guys, tonight we follow footprints into a mystery so cold, so still, and so gently terrifying that you might just lose track of where you end and the mountain begins. This isn't a loud mystery. No blood splattered across marble. No broken clocks or cryptic phone calls. Just snow, silence, and a monk who walked into the night and didn't come back. You're standing at 12,000 feet above sea level. Your breath a puff of steam, boots crunching softly over the fresh snow as you step through the towering wooden gates of the Tsering Monastery. The wind curls through the pines like it's whispering warnings to anyone who dares linger. And tonight, that's you. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're here, drop your location and local time in the comments. Let's see who's cozy and who's just sleep-deprived somewhere spooky. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You arrive just after sunset. The sky glows with that icy pink light that only really happens over mountains, like the sun's swiping right one last time before ghosting the horizon. A young monk meets you at the gate, robes rustling, eyes wide. You came quickly, he says. You nod, unsure what to say. You were told a monk went missing. But the word missing doesn't do justice to the atmosphere here. Something's wrong, and you feel it before anyone says it out loud. He vanished, the monk says. During evening meditation, you follow him through winding corridors. The stone underfoot is smooth with age, each flagstone whispering decades of devotion. Candles flicker in iron sconces. Prayer flags hang limp in the windless corridor, each one printed with mantras worn nearly blank. The monk stops outside a room. The door is closed. A simple wooden latch is still drawn from the inside. He points down. There they are, sandals, set neatly side by side, the kind 1,000 monks wear. Only no one's in them, and no one's in the room either. You unlatch the door carefully. Inside, silence. The room is spare, almost aggressively so. A rolled mat in the corner. A bowl of black tea on a low table. A wall hanging of the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara. Eyes lowered in eternal compassion. No window.
No trapdoor. No escape.
But no monk. Just a lingering warmth in the air that shouldn't be there. Mainstream fact? Tibetan Buddhist monks at high altitudes often engage in long solitary meditation sessions, some lasting days or weeks, especially during dark retreats, where they isolate themselves completely from light and sound. Fringe tidbit? In Himalayan folklore, it's said that certain monks can become so attuned to the spiritual plane that they thin, not die, not ascend, but fade from the physical world entirely, returning only if and when they choose. Historians still argue whether reports of monks disappearing during prolonged meditation are metaphorical or literal accounts of physical vanishing. You sit on the edge of the mat. The floor is warm, not freshly sat on warm, body temperature warm. You glance at the tea bowl, steam, just barely visible. Your fingers hesitate. You touch the floor, still warm, not possible, unless he left just seconds ago. You ask the junior monk when the master was last seen. 3 hours ago, he says. You glance around again.
No hidden panels.
No ladder through the ceiling, just the still air, and the faintest scent of saffron and candle wax. You feel a quiet pressure against your temples, like the room itself is holding its breath. And for one brief, dizzy moment you wonder, what if he's still here? Just not in the way you understand. The walls don't answer. The candles flicker. And outside, the wind begins to howl, like it's laughing softly through teeth made of ice. The wind outside doesn't sound like it's brushing against the monastery. It sounds like it's searching, not howling but hovering, You step back into the corridor and latch the door behind you, out of habit more than necessity. But that room, it doesn't feel empty even now. You follow your young guide down another hall, this one narrower, the ceiling lower. You brush your fingers against prayer wheels tucked neatly into alcoves, their golden spines etched with endless mantras. They don't spin, not one, like the whole monastery has paused its breath. You arrive at a second chamber, smaller, darker. The monk gestures. He lived alone here for 18 years, always meditated at dusk, never missed a bell. You step in. The light is sparse. No electric bulbs, just oil lamps mounted into small recesses along the walls. Their glow makes the shadows feel intentional, like they've taken up residence. You crouch beside the doorframe. There's no sign of forced entry. The wood's intact, the latch undisturbed. You note how smooth the hinges are, too smooth for an old mountain monastery. Someone's been maintaining them. Then you see it. Something subtle. Bare prints on the wooden floor. Just two. Right foot, left foot, pointing inward, as if someone walked in. But no matching pair points outward. You call for your guide. He peers in, then down. His face tightens. That wasn't here before. Mainstream fact? In many Tibetan monasteries, strict rules of silence and isolation are maintained during evening rituals. Monks refrain from unnecessary movement, and rooms like this one are considered sacred, private temples of the self. Fringe tidbit? There's an old belief that if a lama achieves tummo, the generation of inner fire, his footsteps may no longer press the earth fully. Some reports say they leave partial prints, or none at all. Historians still argue whether tales of monks vanishing behind closed doors stem from actual events, or are simply spiritual metaphors exaggerated through oral tradition. You rise slowly. The prints disturb you more than if there had been none, because now you have physical evidence of something unphysical. And just as you're about to leave the room, the bell tolls. Not the big one in the courtyard, not the public one. The inner bell, the one used only by temple masters. Your guide stiffens. That's not possible. You ask why. Because it's in the shrine, and it's sealed. He takes off down the corridor, and you follow, past frescoes of mountain deities and windows carved so narrow they offer only light, never view. You reach the shrine, a heavy wooden door, painted red, sealed with strips of gold-inked fabric, and from inside another chime, soft, measured, like someone ringing with purpose. You step forward. There's no latch, only a sacred mantra burned into the wood, Om Mani Padme Hum. You lean in close to the seam, and just for a second, one heartbeat, you hear breathing, steady, present, then silence. You look at your guide. His lips move in prayer now, barely audible. You whisper, "Can we open it?" He shakes his head. "It's sealed for a year." You blink. "A year?" He nods. "For silent renewal. Only the abbot could unseal it." You ask who sealed it last. He looks at the floor. "The monk who vanished." Of course he did. You glance back at the door, and from deep inside the shrine, just barely, you hear the unmistakable sound of sandals on stone. Walking, closer, then they stop, and this time, the bell doesn't chime. The silence holds like a mouth too scared to speak. You stay frozen in place, hand just inches from the sealed shrine door, your breath misting in the air. Even the flame in your guide's oil lamp seems to shrink, like it's trying not to draw attention. From behind the door, nothing now. Not even the breath you thought you heard before. Just silence so deep it rings in your ears. You ask quietly, "Could it be someone else in there?" Your guide's voice is flat. No one else has the key, and no one else would ring that bell. You want to ask what happens if someone does. but he's already backing away. You linger a few moments more, not because you're brave, just because your feet have forgotten how to move. Then, the smallest detail betrays the illusion. The incense slit in the center of the shrine door is still warm. You press your fingers against it. Faint heat radiates out, like breath exhaled hours late. You finally turn, and notice a flicker of movement further down the corridor. A second robed figure disappears around the corner. You and the novice exchange a glance. He whispers, "There's no one else in this wing." Of course not. You chase it, footsteps echoing against old stone, heart thudding just behind your ribs like it's worried you'll ask too many questions. You turn the corner, nothing, but something lingers, a trace of saffron and sandalwood, and strangely ozone, like the air after lightning. The novice monk catches up to you. His voice is quieter now. "There's something I didn't tell you." You raise an eyebrow. He continues, "The master, before he vanished, he told me to prepare his chamber. He said he was expecting a visitor." You ask, "Was he expecting me?" "I don't think so," the monk says. "I think he meant someone else. Someone who wouldn't knock." You try not to shiver. Mainstream fact? Himalayan monasteries often host death meditations, where advanced practitioners contemplate impermanence and rehearse their own death experience, sometimes lasting for days in absolute stillness, eyes open. Fringe tidbit? A lesser-known belief from Ladakh holds that if a soul achieves total release during meditation, it may attract the attention of a mountain spirit, a being who appears only to offer one final test, or to collect what's been earned. Historians still argue whether these stories are cautionary tales or dramatized metaphors for enlightenment, or something else entirely. You find your way back to the monk's chamber. Feels colder now. The sandals are still there, but the tea bowl? Empty. You ask the novice if he touched anything. He shakes his head, eyes wide. You pick up the bowl, it's bone dry. Not even residue. It's as if it never held liquid at all. Or worse, someone came and drank it and left no trace. You scan the room once more, slower this time. That's when you spot it. A loose thread on the corner of the meditation cushion. Pulled and wound, as though caught on something. You crouch. There, just beneath the mat, is a folded slip of parchment. Old, crisped at the edges. You unfold it. A hand-drawn mandala spirals outward, impossibly detailed. At the center, a single word. Not in Sanskrit, not Tibetan. In English, unmake. Your pulse skips. You show it to your guide. He goes pale. "That word," he says, "was spoken only once here, long ago." You ask him what happened. He hesitates, then says, "The last time someone said it, they disappeared too." You tuck the parchment into your coat pocket. Suddenly, the corridor feels narrower. The shadows feel like they're watching. You take one last look at the empty room, and you start to wonder, what if he isn't missing? What if he did exactly what he set out to do? And what if you're just one step behind someone who didn't want to be found? You lie awake that night in the monastery's guest quarters, the blanket stiff with cold, the ceiling too low, the silence too loud. You try to sleep, but the word from the parchment, unmake, keeps rewinding in your mind, like a thread looped around a reel, playing over and over again until the meaning shifts from metaphor to instruction. At some point, you give up. You sit at the low table by the window and pull out your notebook. You sketch the mandala. It's no use. The lines won't come out the way they looked on the original. Yours lack intention. The original had been designed for something. You were just doodling. Then you remember the missing pages. You return to the master's study. The novice left the door unlatched. Inside, moonlight cuts across the stone floor like a blade. You head for the bookcase, where the old manuscripts sit stacked in calm defiance of the chaos their content once caused. The largest book, the one bound in oxblood leather, lies open exactly where you left it. Dozens of pages, some fragile, others firm, but halfway through the binding warps. A section has been removed. You count. 13 full pages. Torn, not sliced. The edges are uneven, like someone didn't care about preservation. They cared about urgency. You tilt the book toward the moonlight. A single margin note remains, written in English again, though the rest is in Tibetan script. It reads, "Erase the self before the self erases you." Okay, that's fine. Totally normal bedtime message. You find a corner and sit cross-legged, staring at the note until your eyes ache. That's when you notice the scent. Burnt paper. Not recent. Not fire alarm fresh. Just faint and distant, like it's soaked into the stones. You follow it. Behind the bookcase, there's a small door. Low, meant for storage. You open it. Inside, ashes. But not firewood. Pages. You sift carefully, and there it is. A piece of paper only partially burned, its corner stubbornly intact. A phrase loops around its edge. If the self is illusion, what does it mean to disappear? You hold it up to the light. More English. And below it, symbols. Not Buddhist. Not even Asian. Western. Esoteric. One of them is mirrored. Not by design. As if copied by someone who didn't realize they'd reversed it. You rub your temples. Your fingers are dusted with blackened ash. And in that moment, the fire in the small brazier beside you flares. Just once. No one touched it. It simply reacted, like it was listening. Mainstream fact? In many Tibetan monastic traditions, texts are copied by hand over centuries. When errors occur, especially symbolic ones, they're either corrected, buried, or burned to avoid spiritual confusion. Fringe tidbit? In a remote Nepalese archive, a partially translated scroll references the reversible soul, a theoretical construct where one's spiritual core can move backward through its own timeline under duress. Historians still argue whether such documents were spiritual metaphors or early attempts at articulating dimensional theories long before quantum science existed. You rise, careful not to inhale the dust too deeply, and return to the main room. There's one more place you haven't checked. The master's writing desk. The drawers are all locked except one. The smallest. It slides open to reveal a cloth-wrapped object. Palm-sized bell. But not like the ritual bells used in ceremonies. This one's smooth. Featureless. No carvings. Just a thin slit near the top. Like a flute's mouthpiece, except no air should pass through it. You blow on it gently, no sound, but the candle beside it shivers. And somewhere deep in the monastery, a wind chime answers. 1, 2, 3 notes, then silence. You rewrap the bell and place it in your coat. Outside, the wind rises again, but this time it doesn't sound wild. It sounds structured, almost like a voice trying to shape words through cold. You leave the study and walk back down the corridor. Every step is followed just slightly by another step you don't take. You stop. It stops. You walk again. It follows. Not threatening. Not sinister. Just synchronous. As if the mountain is walking with you now. And that might be the scariest feeling yet. You barely remember falling asleep, but you wake to the sound of muted bells. Not ringing, exactly, but trembling, like metal caught between memory and motion. It's still dark outside. The stars hang close, heavy, like they've pressed against the sky all night without blinking. You pull on your coat and step into the corridor. No footsteps this time. No whispers behind the walls. Just cold stone and distant chanting that fades the closer you get to it. like it's not meant for your ears. Back in the main hall, the novice monk is already awake. He sits by the hearth, turning prayer beads between his fingers like he's trying to untangle a knot in time. You sit beside him. He doesn't look up. "He told me he was hollow," the monk says, still turning the beads. "Said the air didn't feel cold anymore. That his body was forgetting how to be here." You ask when he said this. 2 days before he vanished. "I thought it was the altitude." You both stare into the fire. He'd been fasting. The monk continues. But not like before. No water. No speech. Said he was preparing to walk through a door that doesn't open from this side. You don't know what to say, so you just nod. The fire crackles. Then you ask the one question you've been circling. "Do you think he wanted to vanish?" The monk finally stops the beads. He stares at the embers. "I think," he says softly, "he didn't believe vanishing was the end." Mainstream fact? In Tibetan Buddhism, advanced monks are known to engage in phawa, a practice of consciously directing consciousness at the moment of death. Some believe it can lead to rainbow body dissolution, leaving no corpse behind. Fringe tidbit: there are stories from the Nubra Valley of monks walking into snowstorms without food or clothing, never to return. But a few say they were seen later, unchanged, sometimes decades later, always near sacred sites that don't appear on maps. Historians still argue whether these tales are literal accounts of transformation or mythologized metaphors for spiritual transcendence. The novice rises, suddenly alert. You follow his gaze. Footprints. Fresh ones. Bare, again. Leading from the courtyard into the east corridor. You follow. The snow is melting where they touch. But they're not headed toward any living quarters. They're going straight up the mountain trail, through the garden, over the prayer stones, toward the cliff. You grab a lantern and follow the path. Outside, the air is painfully sharp. Your breath curls away like it's trying to return downhill. The prints continue, sure-footed, evenly spaced. Then, halfway up a narrow ridge, they stop. Just like that. One moment they're there, the next, nothing. No scuffle, no leap, no blood. Just snow. Untouched. You crouch at the final print. It's deeper than the others. Pressed harder, like someone leaned into it, then chose to go somewhere else. You scan the trees, the slope, the sky. Nothing. Only the slow crunch of your own breath hardening. You kneel. Close your eyes. You listen. And you hear it. A whisper, not wind. Beneath the breath. You open your eyes. Nothing there. But your lantern flickers. And the snow under your knees has started to melt. Perfect circle about your size. As if you were sitting on something warm. Or being watched by something warmer. You rise slowly. Look up at the stars again. And for the first time you feel below them. Not beneath their beauty, but under their weight. Like they're staring down and taking note. And maybe checking your name against some kind of ancient ledger. You turn back toward the monastery. The wind picks up. It doesn't sound like weather. It sounds like breath. And you wonder, just briefly, if you're already being remembered by the mountain the way it remembered him. And if that's the first step toward not being found. The sky turns from black to deep cobalt as you descend, that ghost pale color that happens just before sunrise when everything looks flat and far away. The monastery reappears beneath you like something summoned, silent, symmetrical, patient. The fresh snow glistens across the courtyard, untouched except for one quiet path of your own footprints, and the ones you followed, the ones that ended in midstep. You half expect the novice monk to be gone when you return. But he's still there, waiting. "I followed you," he says, "until the prince stopped." You nod. Same here. He doesn't speak again, just walks with you to the meditation hall, where the silence is somehow thicker than before, like it's picked up extra meaning overnight. The door creaks. You both pause, then enter. Nothing's changed, except the cushion where the senior monk once sat has been turned. Not flipped, turned 45 degrees, now facing a different wall. A bare one. No iconography, no mantra flags, no symbols, just stone. You cross the room and run your fingers along it. Smooth, cold, and then something catches. The faint groove. You trace it. Curves, spirals, loops. A symbol. The same one from the burnt parchment. You and the monk exchange a look. This wasn't here before, he says. Mainstream fact? Some Tibetan temples include concealed doors, not literal entries, but points along walls marked with sacred geometry, intended for internal passage only. Meditation toward these spots is said to induce visionary states. Fringe tidbit: a few oral histories from Dalpo speak of the veiled path, a physical location that appears only when a soul nears readiness, marked by temperature changes, vanished echoes, and most bizarrely, the turning of one's own cushion without touch. Historians still argue whether these stories are symbolic thresholds, or reports from practitioners who accessed altered states near geological anomalies. You step back. The symbol on the wall begins to warm beneath your palm. Just faintly, just enough. Then a sound breaks the silence. A clang. Outside. Metal on stone. You rush into the corridor. Down the stairs. To the prayer courtyard. And there it is. The courtyard bell. Swinging gently. But no one near it. No wind. Just movement. You watch it slow. And stop. Then you notice something that shouldn't be there. Footprints. Again. But this time not barefoot. Sandaled. Familiar. Leading not away from the monastery, but back toward it. And they're fresh. So fresh the snow is still collapsing at the edges. You and the novice follow. Back through the hallway. Into the dining hall. Around the kitchen. And into a side corridor used mostly for supplies. At the end of it, another door. One you haven't opened yet. The novice pulls the key from a chain around his neck. We use it for guests sometimes, he says, voice tight. But not in winter. He unlocks it. You both step inside. The room is dark. Blankets neatly folded on the cot. Cup of tea. Warm. Still steaming. You freeze. It's his. You reach for it. And stop. Something shifts in the corner. Not movement, shadow. As if someone just left. Or is still watching. But the room is empty. You step back into the hallway. And there, scrawled across the inside of the door in charcoal, are 3 simple words. He is waiting. You ask, where? The monk's voice is barely audible. Where the cave breathes. You don't need to ask which cave he means. You saw it on the map scratched into smoke. The one revealed by flame. And now it's not a question of if you'll go. Only when. You grip your coat tighter. The wind outside hums through the walls again. And this time, it sounds a little too much like breathing. You leave just after sunrise. The cave marked on the smoky wall, drawing your steps like a string tugging gently from the base of your spine. The air is colder now, quiet in that oddly alert way, like something big is nearby but pretending to sleep. The novice doesn't follow this time. He just watches from the monastery gate, hands pressed together in silent prayer, eyes locked on you like he's not sure if he's sending you off or letting you go. You trudge through fresh powder, past prayer flags flapping listlessly in a wind that seems to vanish the moment you look for it. The trail becomes more vertical, more stubborn. Your boots slide, your breath crystallizes, and then you find it. The cave, a narrow fissure in the rock wall, hidden behind a row of prayer stones. Stones you recognize from the burnt photo. Lichen-covered, one cracked in a very specific crescent shape. You kneel. It's tight, barely shoulder width. No torch, just your lantern. and that first exhale of air from inside the cave. It isn't cold. It's warm, like breath. You lower your head and crawl inside. It's pitch dark. The lantern throws strange, flickering light across the walls. Bare rock, except here and there, etchings, scratchings, mantras maybe, or warnings. The air pulses faintly, in then out, as if the cave is alive, breathing. At one point you swear you hear a murmur, not speech, just a deep, resonant hum that vibrates through your spine and makes your vision shiver slightly. You pause, listen, again hum. You crawl forward. The tunnel curves, then splits. One path veers right, the other dips down. You take the downward one. Gravity seems more helpful than mystery right now, and that's when the lantern flutters. You pause, look back, nothing. Then you hear it, footsteps, soft, measured, in sandals. But there's no space behind you for someone to stand. Unless they aren't standing. You hold your breath. The sound stops. You crawl faster. The tunnel opens into a small chamber. Circular. Low ceiling. At the center, a stone platform. And on it, a rope, folded neatly, still warm. You touch it. And something inside you whispers, "He's still here." Mainstream fact? Caves have long been part of spiritual retreat for Himalayan monks. Known as drupkangs, they're used for isolation, fasting, and deep meditation, sometimes for years at a time. Fringe tidbit? Some believe that specific caves in the Himalayas sit at fault lines not just of earth, but of experience. Places where memory folds, or where two times can overlap briefly. Historians still argue whether tales of chanting caves and vanishing monks come from psychological effects of isolation, or if certain caves truly breathe when opened at the right hour. You scan the chamber again. There's nothing here, and yet something watches. You feel it like pressure, not on your skin but inside your mind. Presence. Curious, not cruel. You reach for your notebook. You draw the mandala again. This time, your hand doesn't hesitate. The lines flow, faster than you intend. Then your lantern flickers out. Dark. Silence. Only breath. Yours. And the caves. You don't panic. You listen, and hear one more whisper so close it might be inside your own skull. Go deeper. You run your hand along the stone wall until you find another passage. Smaller, steeper. You enter, one arm forward, one clutching the notebook, and as you crawl further into the unknown, you begin to wonder, what exactly are you chasing? A monk? A myth? Or something waiting for you at the bottom of this breathless world that's been waiting a very, very long time? You don't remember when the tunnel stops sloping. At some point the crawl just levels. Your palms are numb from the stone. Your knees ache. But there's a strange stillness now, not dead silence, but held silence. Like a room just before someone says something they can't take back. Your lantern flickers back to life all on its own. No switch touched. No fuel changed. It glows softly as if the cave, or something within it, has permitted your light again. Ahead, the tunnel widens into another chamber, and this one isn't natural. Stone tiles set by hand, incense holders built into the walls, a low stone table at the center, and on it something small and ordinary, a bowl. Steam curls out of it, still warm. You move closer. Inside is tsampa, a barley porridge barely touched. Someone's meal. Not old. Not spoiled. Still perfectly edible. You look around. The chamber has no bed, no mat, no signs of habitation. Just the meal, the table, and high on one wall a row of prayer wheels. You spin one. It stops before completing the rotation. Then slowly reverses direction. Okay. That's new. You reach for the second. It spins freely, and when it stops, the air shifts, as if something in the chamber has acknowledged your presence. Mainstream fact: Tibetan prayer wheels are meant to send blessings into the world with each rotation. Some remote wheels are rigged with hidden mechanisms to spin continually using water or wind, considered a perpetual offering. Fringe tidbit: there's a tale from a monastery in Bhutan about a prayer wheel that spun backward for a full day after the sudden death of a monk. Despite no breeze, no disturbance. The wheel's mantra was one of reversal, and some believe it called him back. Historians still argue whether sacred devices like these have psychological or metaphysical effects, or simply respond to environmental factors misinterpreted as divine. You sit beside the table and stare at the porridge. The warmth is intimate. You don't touch it, but you do speak. Quietly. Are you here? No reply. Not with words, but a breath of air circles the chamber. Just enough to tickle the back of your neck. You rise. You turn. On the far wall, the soot from 100 incense sticks has formed a rough pattern. Chaotic at first, but then something clicks in your mind. It's a map, not one you'd find in a guidebook, but you recognize the ridgelines. You trace a path with your finger. It leads from the monastery to this cave, and then further, to a place marked not with a name, but with a symbol. That spiral again, and beneath it, 3 tiny brush marks. You lean in. They're numbers. 108. You whisper the number aloud. The prayer wheel spins once on its own. The air thickens, and a stone, yes, an actual stone, shifts in the floor behind you. You rush over. There's a trapdoor, small, round, covered in ritual markings. You hesitate, then lift it. Another ladder, down. Only this one smells less like rock and more like earth. Damp, old. You descend. The air grows warmer, thicker, like something's alive below. And you think to yourself, half joking, half desperate, remember how this started with a missing monk? Good times. Now you're spelunking into holy cavities with breathable porridge and mood swing prayer wheels. But that's how these mysteries go. They start simple. They end with trapdoors, and possibly no exit. At the bottom, you land in a low passage that pulses with golden light. Not electric, not torchlit. It comes from glowing mica embedded in the walls. You follow it, and as you do, something strange happens. The notebook in your coat grows warm. You pull it out. The mandala you sketched earlier is changing. Ink bleeding out, reshaping. You didn't draw this. It's being drawn for you. You stop walking, because right ahead, the tunnel ends. A wall, plain stone, except in the center, a single handprint, pressed deep into the stone like it melted on contact. You press your hand to it. It fits perfectly. And then, yes, you saw it coming. The wall opens. You step through, and your breath catches. Because this chamber, this one's not part of the monastery. It's not part of the cave. It's something else. And whatever lives here has been expecting you for a very, very long time. You're not sure how long you stand there, staring into the chamber that shouldn't exist. The walls here aren't stone anymore. Or if they are, they've been shaped by something that understands architecture the way dreams understand physics. Surfaces that bend without corners, shimmer without light. It's a space that feels older than the mountain, like the mountain grew around it. The air is warm again, but now it's scented frankincense, maybe, or something older, something you can't name. Smells like memory, and that's when you hear it. Words, not a voice, not language, just syllables carried on a current of air. Spoken in Tibetan, but not the modern kind. Archaic, ancient. Still, you know what it means. You came late, but you came open. You take a cautious step inside. The chamber brightens as you move, though no flame is visible. It simply reacts to your presence, like the cave is adjusting its settings just for you. The floor is smooth. You could swear it's worn down from centuries of footfalls, though the dust is undisturbed. At the center of the room is a raised platform. On it, a mirror, but not a typical mirror. It's round, encased in brass, old, tarnished, but polished on the surface. And when you approach it, it doesn't show your reflection. It shows him, the monk, sitting calmly in the lotus position, eyes closed, breathing, alive, still. You reach out, and the image shifts, not away but deeper. Now he's walking along a ridge path. Same robe, same sandals, but different weather, different sky, then gone. Another blink. He's sitting at a table, a bowl of porridge before him. You, across from him. What? You stumble back from the mirror. Your heart's thudding now. Too fast. You whisper, "What is this?" And the air answers, not with speech, with another shift. Now the mirror shows the monk again, this time looking straight at you. And he smiles. Mainstream fact? Certain Tibetan rituals involve polished obsidian or bronze mirrors called melong, believed to reflect not the physical body, but the state of one's inner consciousness. They're used in some initiation ceremonies to test perception. Fringe tidbit? In rare oral traditions from remote Himalayan sects, there are accounts of sight mirrors that respond to karmic entanglements, showing you your own role in someone else's path. Historians still argue whether these mirrors were literal instruments or symbolic tools for self-confrontation and mental projection. You move around the mirror, but the back is solid. No projection, no screen, no explanation. You look again. Now he's gone. And the mirror? It shows only your reflection now. But with one difference. Your eyes are closed. You reach up, confused. But your own eyelids are open. Still blinking. Still watching. So whose reflection is that? The chamber darkens slightly. You look up. One wall now has writing etched into it. Fresh. You didn't see it before. It reads, "When he disappeared, he did not go alone." You read it again. It's not a message. It's a conclusion. And a warning. You take a step back toward the entrance. The stone closes. Seamless. Gone. You're sealed in. No panic. Not yet. Just cold clarity. You glance at the mirror. Your reflection blinks and says in your voice, "Go to the wind." You look around. Another etching appears on the opposite wall. A spiral. And beside it, the breath continues where the stone ends. You slide your fingers along the wall where the etching is. It's warm. You press harder. A hiss. A line appears. A new door. You step through. And immediately the air hits your face. Hard. You're outside again. But not where you entered. You're further up the mountain. Far beyond where the path ever led. And from here, you see the valley spread wide and impossibly quiet. Then you hear it. Not your breath. Not the wind. A voice. Very close. Whispering. You are remembering in reverse. You stand at the mouth of this impossible exit, high above the monastery, the world below looking like it was drawn in charcoal and forgotten in the corner of a drawer. The cold air hits your lungs like a warning, but it's the kind of warning you're too deep in to heed. Somewhere down below, you know the novice monk is still in that hall, still spinning his prayer beads, still hoping that whatever has pulled you out here doesn't pull you further. But up here, it's no longer about choice. It's about movement. The snow is pristine, except for one set of footprints leading across a ledge too narrow to have been traversed by accident. Each step is placed like a calligraphy stroke. Not rushed, not desperate, deliberate. You follow them. After maybe 50 paces, The prints veer sharply and vanish beneath a snowdrift. You kick gently at it and uncover a shape. A stone plate set into the ground, carved with a spiral. Your favorite spiral. The one that's been following you like a signature written across pages, doors, ash. And it has a crack running through it. You kneel. At the center is a small, square hole, just large enough for something thin and flat. A key, a card, a letter. You reach into your coat and remember the folded parchment from earlier, the half-burned one. You press its edge into the gap. It slides in perfectly. There's a click, and the stone shifts. It doesn't open. It lowers, revealing a metal chute underneath. Something old, rusted, impossibly out of place in this sacred landscape. A mail chute. You just unlocked a sealed post registry built directly into the mountain. Mainstream fact? During the 1930s, efforts were made by explorers to set up postal way stations through parts of the Himalayas, hoping to link remote monastic communities to broader routes. Most failed or were quietly abandoned. Fringe tidbit? One unverified report mentions a spiritual registry hidden near a monastery in Sikkim. Legend said it wasn't meant for letters to be delivered, but for memories to be returned. Historians still argue whether such claims stem from mistranslated records or from real structures repurposed over generations for mystic ritual. You reach inside the chute. Something's there. You pull it free. It's a package, wrapped in faded silk. Heavy. You unwrap it carefully. Inside is a lockbox, and in the center of the lockbox, a mirror fragment, cracked, and stuck to its surface an envelope, addressed in an elegant looping script. For the one who found the bowl. You glance over your shoulder. The bowl in the cave. Warm porridge. You found it. You break the seal. Inside, a single sheet of parchment. Not burned. Perfectly preserved. The writing is familiar, sharp, thin strokes. Do not chase me. I have not left. I am where the voice ends and the breath begins. To find me, forget me. You look up. The wind is rising again, but now it's curling around you like recognition. You fold the letter, but before you pocket it, something catches your eye. The back of the envelope. A wax seal, pressed with a symbol that makes your stomach lurch. It's your initials, not stylized, not ancient-looking, just your handwriting, pressed into wax that's still soft. You look down at your fingers. There's a faint red smear. You check your pocket. The wax seal stamp, identical to the one on the envelope, is there, but you've never seen it before. You back away slowly from the chute, clicks closed, and vanishes beneath the snow like it was never there. The footprints that led you here, gone. And for the first time you realize something. You're not following a path. You're walking in a memory. Maybe his, maybe yours, maybe both. You look out at the peaks, and for a single blink you see the monk again, standing just beyond a ridge. Looking back, he raises a hand. Not a wave, a beckon. Then he's gone, and you start walking toward where he last stood. Because no matter what the note says, you're not ready to forget him. Not yet. You don't call out to him. That would feel ridiculous, or dangerous, or both. Besides, the wind would swallow your voice before it reached anything resembling human ears. You just keep walking. The place where you saw him, just beyond the next ridge, feels closer than it should. Like the distance is collapsing, the way time's been warping since you arrived. You're not cold anymore. You're not exactly warm either. You're something in between. Something unmeasurable. The ridge flattens into a narrow ledge that overlooks a drop too deep to guess. You steady yourself against a boulder, breath even, and then see it. A cairn. Stacked with perfect symmetry. 7 stones high. a ribbon of saffron cloth tied around the middle, the same color as the monk's robes. There's something tucked beneath the top rock. You remove it carefully. A scroll. Short. Old. You unroll it and read. The man with no signature always arrives second. You blink. That again. You've heard about this figure, the silent benefactor, the stranger who left behind partial trails, initialed scraps, subtle artifacts. You check the back of the scroll. 3 characters. L. M. You've seen them before, once, scribbled in the monastery's guest ledger, next to a room never assigned. You mutter, FLM. Your breath forms the letters in front of you. They dissolve. You hear something behind the boulder. Soft scuffing like cloth brushing against stone. You pivot fast, nothing. But on the rock where your hand just was a fresh mark. Charcoal. Still damp. The same 3 initials. FLM. Written in your handwriting. Okay. Now we're playing with borrowed ink. Mainstream fact? In ancient Tibet, some wandering teachers left no formal names, only mantras or initials, part of a belief that identity was an obstacle, not a gift. Students knew them only by presence or silence. Fringe tidbit? In certain cryptic sects, the phrase, "He who signs nothing signs last," implies a spiritual hierarchy of untraceability. Some believe such individuals were responsible for guiding others from one life to another without ever being seen twice. Historians still argue whether these silent guides were real people, exaggerated archetypes, or spiritual metaphors for internal realization. You continue past the cairn. Soon, the ledge curves around a stone outcrop, and there, standing before you, is another structure. Tiny, weather-beaten. A hut? No, a shrine. But it's recent, maybe 5 years old. The paint isn't faded enough. The roof is made of woven reeds instead of carved slate. You approach. Inside is a single object. A clay figurine, shaped like a monk in lotus pose. But the face is yours. You stare. It's crude, yes, but the shape of the brow, the angle of the chin, the mouth slightly ajar in mid-thought. You reach in, touch it. The figurine is warm. You lift it gently. Underneath is a note. Your arrival was predicted, not required. You reread that line 3 times, then tuck it into your coat, and say aloud to no one in particular, "Predicted by who?" The answer arrives in the form of a breeze. Strong, focused. You look up the hill. The figure waits there, still, facing away. Not the monk. Not exactly.
Taller.
Broader, but robed, and unmoving. You climb. The wind shoves at you like it's trying to delay your approach. The figure doesn't flinch. You get closer. Your boots crunch over loose rock. Closer. Now 20 feet. Then 10. And suddenly he turns. His face is completely unfamiliar. But his expression, recognition, like he's been waiting for you this whole time. You open your mouth. No words come out. He steps aside. And behind him, a doorway, not built, formed, in the mountain, just enough space for you to walk through. He gestures, not commanding, inviting, and then he says it, soft, measured. If you still seek him, this is the last breath. Then he steps aside. And you walk into the dark, because your name is written on too many doors now to pretend otherwise. The doorway isn't cold. It's neutral, like stepping into a moment that hasn't decided what kind of moment it wants to be yet. You pass through it, brushing your shoulder slightly on one side, and for an instant, everything goes silent.
No heartbeat. No breathing.
Just nothing. Then the world exhales. You're in a chamber even more ancient than the last. This one feels old, not in dust or architecture, but in how the space leans inward, like time itself got tired and slouched against the walls. The man outside doesn't follow. You glance back, but the doorway is gone. Not closed. Gone. Now you're here. Wherever here is. In the dim glow of the mica-studded walls, you see that this space has no ceiling. Or maybe it does, but it's too high to catch the light. The air is soft, like the underside of a whisper. At the center of the room is a pool. Not water. It looks like water, but the surface doesn't move. Not with your steps. Not with your breath. It reflects perfectly. Too perfectly. You kneel beside it. The reflection doesn't show you. It shows the monk. Again. Only now he's older. Wrinkled. Calm. Still. And next to him on a second cushion is you. Older. Smiling. Same coat. Same journal. You blink. The image vanishes. Now it's just you staring at you. Present day you. Blinking back. You whisper, "Am I supposed to become him?" The pool doesn't answer. But behind you, the wall begins to glow faintly. Another message is forming, this one in your own handwriting. This is not transformation. This is memory. You frown. Say aloud, "Whose memory?" The answer doesn't come in words. Comes in a sound. A soft shuffle. You turn. And he's there. The monk. Just standing. Watching. Unchanged. Not a day older than when he vanished. He smiles. Sits beside the pool. Cross-legged. You mirror him. Silence settles. You wait. He speaks. You walked far to find what never left. Mainstream fact? In advanced meditation, Buddhist masters describe a concept called non-local mind, a belief that consciousness isn't bound to a physical location, but can extend and return without traversing space. Fringe tidbit: an obscure monastic letter from 1872 claimed that one monk saw his own student appear before him before that student had even been born. The document was never translated officially. It was burned before it left the Himalayas. Historians still argue whether these claims are poetic mysticism or early intuition of what modern science might one day call quantum entanglement of self. You ask him, finally, "Why did you disappear?" He looks up at the ceilingless space. "Because I remembered too far forward." Your head tilts. He smiles again, then holds out something. It's the clay figurine, the one from the shrine, but this time, crumbles in his hand. Dust. Gone. You both stare at it. He says softly, "The form was only a suggestion." You feel your fingers tingle. You reach into your pocket and pull out the letter he never sent. The one addressed to you. He doesn't even read it. He just nods, as if he already wrote it long before you arrived. You look into the pool again. This time, no reflection, only light, swirling, spinning, like the center of the mandala. You ask, "What happens now?" The monk looks at the light and says, "You remember the return." You begin to ask what that means, but you don't get the chance, because the chamber shifts, not physically, emotionally, like everything just slid sideways in your chest. Your lungs don't feel like lungs anymore. Your thoughts blur. The monk stands, places one hand on your shoulder, and says simply, "Stay until the question finishes asking you." Then he walks into the pool, not around it, into it, and he vanishes like ink in water. Gone. You are left with the echo of your own breathing, and a room that is slowly forgetting its shape. So you sit, and you wait, until the question begins to form, and you suspect the answer has something to do with why your initials are carved into a cave you've never been to before last week. Time doesn't pass in this chamber, it dilates, thickens, then stretches out like an animal waking from a nap it didn't mean to take. You've been sitting here so long that your bones have forgotten what clocks are. And weirdly, you're okay with that, You study the pool. Still no ripples. Still no reflection. Just that swirling, slow mandala of light, pulsing in and out like a breath the mountain's been holding for centuries. Or maybe it's your breath. Hard to tell anymore. You open your notebook. Your fingers move on their own. No intention. No thought. They sketch the spiral again. But this time it completes itself. Not in your usual fidgety strokes. No hesitation. One full, clean loop. Inside it, your hand draws something new. A symbol you don't recognize. A combination of curves and angles. When you stop, you look down and feel your stomach drop a little. It's not Tibetan. Not Sanskrit. It's your handwriting. Your personal shorthand for origin. A symbol you made up years ago while daydreaming in a cafe. Never showed anyone. Never used it in writing. You whisper, "How?" The pool responds. With words this time. Not sound. Just the feeling of a sentence forming in your chest. Because you have always already been here. You stand. The chamber doesn't change. You do. Something in you stands up too. Not your legs, not your back. Something deeper. A memory? No. A return. Mainstream fact? Carl Jung once theorized the idea of a collective unconscious. A set of shared memories and archetypes we all tap into, like old psychic sediment. Many Eastern philosophies believe this too, only they call it storehouse consciousness. Fringe tidbit? In the 1960s, a Buddhist translator working in Nepal swore he found a ritual scroll that listed names of monks not yet born. He claimed he found his own name on the list 14 years before his birth. The scroll was lost in a flood, or burned, or stolen. Depends who you ask. Historians still argue whether these stories are spiritual metaphor or early warnings that the self, as we define it, has been misfiled for centuries. You walk to the far wall. It's glowing again. More words now. When the breath forgets the body forgets the breath. You frown. You turn around. And now the chamber has changed. Subtly, the pool is gone, replaced by a path. Stone steps, cut downward, descending into shadow. You hesitate only for a breath. Then take the first step. It doesn't echo. It absorbs sound. Like the mountain has decided that this part is only for you. You descend. One step, then another. Your breath stays calm. Your heart doesn't race. Instead, your mind starts giving things back to you. Moments you forgot. Like seeing the monk's face in a magazine article years ago. Like sketching a mandala in the margin of a library book once and feeling your hand knew it already. Memories folding back in. Like luggage returning after a canceled flight. You reach the bottom. Another chamber. This one round. Small. No more symbols. No more mirrors. Just a cushion. And on it, a book. Old. Blank. You pick it up. The cover feels like bark. Inside, one sentence. Written in that same familiar hand. Yours. If I vanish, I leave you to explain me. You sit on the cushion. The book rests in your lap. You lift the pen tied to its spine. Ink still wet. The page turns itself. You begin to write. Not because you're told to, because you must. You start with, "He disappeared quietly, but he never truly left." And as the words settle into the page, the walls around you hum. The spiral returns. One slow curve, and you know what comes next, because the next chapter is yours. You don't stop writing. The pages seem endless, but not in a way that overwhelms you. More like a conversation that's waited decades to happen. Every word pours out like it was already inside you, waiting for your hands to remember how to let go. The book responds as you write. The ink dries faster than it should. The spine flexes with a soft creak, like it's breathing along with you. This is no journal. This is a memory vault. You flip back through what you've written 3, maybe 4 pages, and every sentence lands with the weight of déjà vu. You didn't invent this. You recalled it. And yet, some lines don't feel like yours at all. One in particular stands out. The one who follows vanishes first. You didn't write that, but it's in your handwriting. Another line appears beneath it without your pen moving. He has already arrived again. You close the book gently. The air in the chamber shifts. The spiral on the floor pulses once, twice. A circle of light spreads from its center. And from that light, he appears. The monk, as he was. Whole. Peace. He doesn't walk. He is. One moment absent. The next present. He sits across from you. You don't speak. Not yet. Because something larger is happening now. The spiral isn't a symbol. It's a key. And it's unlocking something in you that's bigger than curiosity. This has never been about solving a mystery. It's about accepting one. He finally speaks. Not aloud. Through stillness. I did not leave to be found. I left so the finding could begin. Mainstream fact? In certain lineages, monks who enter deep retreat are believed to pass into what's called a clear light state, where ego dissolves and perception becomes unbound. This is considered both death and transcendence, depending on perspective. Fringe tidbit? One tale from Ladakh tells of a monk who meditated so deeply he dreamed himself into someone else's future. That someone was said to be the monk's own teacher, reborn, writing about the dream decades later. Historians still argue whether these reports are spiritually symbolic, reincarnation folklore, or glimpses of consciousness unmoored from linear time. You speak now. A simple question, why me? The monk smiles, like the answer is both too large and too simple. Because you ask the quiet questions. He rises, walks to the spiral, places his palm to the floor, and just like that, the floor dissolves. Not visually, emotionally. The weight in your chest vanishes. You stand too. And suddenly, the letters, the footsteps, the missing bowl of porridge, the silent initials. It was never about finding him. It was about becoming someone who could understand why he left. And you do. You finally do. He places something in your hand. The small, warm bell from the study. Only this time, when you raise it gently to your lips and blow, it rings. Soft, clear. The chamber breathes out, and a new doorway forms. Behind you, back the way you came, but not quite the same. You look at him one last time. He bows his head, and vanishes like a story finishing its final line. The bell in your hand still hums. And you step through the door, back into the world, but not back into your life, because that's different now, and it always will be. You emerge from the mountainside into daylight so bright, it doesn't feel real. Everything is sharp, too clear, like someone turned the saturation up on the world while you were away. Snow glints off the peaks in blinding diamonds. The monastery lies below, unchanged, impossibly distant, almost toy-like from up here. But you know now it hasn't stayed the same. Neither have you. You descend the path slowly, one careful footstep at a time, as if re-entering gravity after floating in deep space. The bell in your hand feels heavier now, not in weight, in memory. When you finally reach the courtyard, the novice is waiting. His eyes widen when he sees you, and then, without a word, he bows. You bow too. He asks nothing, and that feels like the greatest kindness. You enter the monastery one last time, just to leave the bell where you found it, inside the smallest drawer of the master's desk. You wrap it carefully in cloth, set it gently down, but there's something else waiting for you there. A letter. Addressed not to you but from you. Your name on the corner. Your handwriting. Inside, it reads, "You will return only if you forget everything. And if you remember, you'll never need to return. Either way, you were always part of this. You place it in your coat, not to keep, just to carry for a while." Mainstream fact: many monasteries keep records of every visitor, dates, intentions, even dream journals. In some places, your entry is logged before you ever arrive. Fringe tidbit: a 1904 expedition report from a French mystic claimed he found his name carved into a Himalayan shrine wall, dated 3 centuries earlier. The report was confiscated by his own government. Some say he wrote the report in advance, then destroyed it himself. Historians still argue whether these strange overlaps are hoaxes, hallucinations, or breadcrumbs left by a consciousness too complex to fit into one lifetime. You leave the monastery after a short farewell. The novice doesn't walk with you, but he watches, and you don't look back until the stone path bends behind the final rise. When you do, the monastery is gone. Not hidden, gone. The trail remains, but the building has vanished into the mountainside like a breath you can't quite recall. You make your way down to the village. The snow begins to fall again, light and slow, like ash from an extinguished fire. When you reach the edge of town, you find your old boots by the hearth of the inn, still warm, and in the guest book at the desk, your name, but in someone else's handwriting. And beside it, a note, just 2 words. Full circle. You don't check out. You don't need to, because the journey didn't end. Folded. And now it's part of you. Now the air softens around you. You lie back, somewhere quiet. Maybe still beneath stars. Maybe already drifting toward morning. Wherever you are, that mountain lingers behind your closed eyes, the way real places sometimes do when they've opened something deeper. You feel the weight of the bell now only as a memory. The spiral still turns somewhere inside you, slow and gentle, a rhythm that's no longer asking questions, just echoing breath. You don't need to follow footprints anymore. You don't need to ask whose initials are carved where. Because tonight wasn't about solving a mystery, it was about stepping inside one. Letting it shift, letting it change you. The monk didn't vanish. Not really. He simply slipped into a space we don't have words for. And you didn't just find him. You found yourself, seated beside the silence. Your own name folded in the pages of a book only you can write. So breathe now. Let your mind slow. Feel the weight of snow falling on distant rooftops. Feel the hush of a room lit only by candlelight. Feel how wide the world is when it finally quiets down. And if tomorrow comes with questions, let them. Because you've seen what waits beyond answers. You've sat where silence lives. And you left the door open behind you. Just a little. Just enough.